I am so excited and delighted for this episode of the Blaxit Global podcast, Finding Love Abroad. And I am so excited and delighted to have the Thea Duncan joining me today, all the way from Milan, Italy. Welcome to Blaxit Global.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. It's an honor and a pleasure. We've spoken, so you know this, but I think what you are doing is so important. Also, because I think so many people don't realize that this is an option for them. Like, we live in this big, beautiful world, and we as human beings are able to explore this world. We don't have to stay in the United States if that's not where we want to be, you know? And I love the way that you share all of this information about these incredible people who are doing incredible things. They're always so eloquent and educated. And I'm like, always just loving up on all the beautiful, like successful blackness. I'm like,
It's like, and it's so, thank you for that. First of all, let me thank and acknowledge that compliment. It has really been a wonderful journey and a labor of love. But, I wanted to highlight these stories because, we aren't diamonds in the rough. Like, there are Black people that are moving abroad that are making these decisions. Black excellence
mm,
exists, right?
yeah.
So being able to just amplify incredible stories from incredible people like yourself is something that brings me joy, particularly at this time when I have not made my journey yet to moving abroad, but I have traveled overseas, but also because we are in the midst of a global pandemic. And so this is also my opportunity to live vicariously through my guests and be inspired and educated through their stories. So I am so excited and delighted that you are joining me.
Thank you. It's an honor. It's truly an honor. When I heard your first podcast, I was like, who is this woman? And I love her already.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we had our first part of the conversation for the Blaxit Global podcast. And this one is on a topic that I don't often talk about on the podcast, which is finding love abroad. But in the Blaxit Global Facebook group, which you are a member, there are a lot of conversations. People ask about finances, of course, and career and where to live. But inevitably, it comes a
Mm,
question about love. And so I thought for this kind of spinoff, I wanted to squarely focus and highlight those stories of people like you who traveled abroad. Maybe that wasn't their main intention, but was able to discover love. So you
mhm.
are in Milan, Italy, like the fashion center of the world. So tell me a little bit about your unique love story.
With my husband or everybody else?
Wherever you want to go, Thea, wherever you want to go.
I think I'm going to start off with
Mm,
the mindset piece, right? For whatever reason it was, I grew up always thinking I was fabulous. Does that make sense?
oh, absolutely. Why
Not,
not? Let's
I mean,
normalize that. Why not?
I'm a dark skinned Black woman,
That's
right?
right.
And I realized that there are, what's the word I'm looking for? Some people may not see me as being beautiful, right?
Mhm.
I'm from the Caribbean. I remember having conversations with my father about colorism
Mm,
and dark brown chocolate people not being considered beautiful, right?
mhm.
And I realized that it's not just dark skinned chocolate brown women, but society puts all this stuff on us, right? They put all this stuff on us. But somehow, in the midst of all the stuff, I always thought, some way, somehow, that I was fabulous and I deserved to be loved, right? Like, and to be loved well. And I think that the fact that I always treated the men I dated like, you are lucky to be with me. And in doing so, I think I weeded out a lot of the trash. I mean, I have dated some like horrible men in the past too. But ultimately, I on what
Uh-oh, I lost you for a bit. You froze.
right. I think it's because I had a certain level of love for myself and what I was willing to put up with and not put up with. And I did not believe the stories of being less worthy, that, like when they tell us that you're loud, us Black people are loud, or Black women are angry, or any of those other labels that they try and put on us, I didn't believe that. And so I have literally traveled the world and I have dated people from almost every continent of this world, pretty much. I don't know. I haven't had a long term relationship with an Asian man, but Chinese. But like I could tell you, like an Indian man.
I love it. World traveler.
Nigerian, Argentinian, English. I mean, it's always, I'm going to say, like, been my reality, but because I want to say my parents didn't tell me that it's not what I deserved,
Mm,
right? You know?
that is so deep and so important because those messages that you get in those early years before you're even interested in people, right? All of these things develop your self awareness, your self esteem, your confidence, and how you view and approach the world, how you interpret how others see you. I love that your parents poured that into you so that you could be audacious and bold and not see barriers, but to see past those things and reject, as part of that, anything that was contrary to those early messages. That is
Yeah.
so, so important.
Yeah. I mean, I was in high school and I did a study abroad program in Poland. And I spent like 6 weeks in Poland. And in the 6 weeks I was in Poland, I had a Polish boyfriend.
Of course you did. Why not? Right? Because you're like, because the saying is when in Rome, so when in Poland. Like, okay.
I also, and I want to add this, not to like be thinking I was out here like sleeping with every man on every corner of the world. No, I can still count how many people I've been on my fingers. You know what I mean? But that was part of it too. That was the part of the self respect and the self love, that it was like, you can be with me, but you're going to have to work for it. And that ties into my husband because I met my husband and he was a very Italian man who showed up late for our first date. I was like, mm. But my husband, in fact, today we went to meet up with friends and he baked a cake. He baked a carrot cake and he told them, oh, you know how many carrot cakes I baked for my wife? When we first started dating and I would come to Milan for work, he would make me carrot cakes and he would come pick me up at the airport, even though my company was organizing transportation, but he had to be there. You know how many bouquets of flowers? I was living with my aunt in New York and I would get orchids and roses. And at one point in time, he flew to see me in Germany. And I remember he got to the door and I was like, you can come inside, but don't think I'm going to sleep with you.
Weeding them out. You're like, look, you got to pass this test first.
Right.
Oh
I
my
was always
gosh.
like, I mean, I've had my moments where I've been with men that didn't treat me as well as I think I should have been treated.
Mm.
I've had the crappy dates, the guys have cheated on me, and I found out after the fact. Like, even I dated another Italian man who was an incredibly loving man, and we still friends to this day, but his parents didn't accept him having a black woman, right? And he working in the family business and being very wealthy, it was really hard for him. And I know that man loved me and he cared about me. It was something that was really hard for him. And at a certain point in time, I said, I don't want to wait anymore. Right. And I moved on. But in almost all of those relationships, it was a level of love and self-respect for myself first that allowed me to date everywhere else around the world and know you get to be with Thea.
That's right, because you are the prize. Let's be clear,
Mhm.
right? And so anything that is worth working hard for is worth getting. And so I love that you had that approach. And even when you met who is now your husband, like that wasn't like, okay, you check all the boxes or you meet all those things. Like, I'm going to do away with my criteria for
All
you. Like, you
right.
stay true to that essence of who you are. So I love that.
Thank you.
So you guys met and he clearly courted you.
Courted me.
Yes. So you talked a little bit about the courtship, but talk about like that decision for you to say yes to marriage. My goodness.
you know, that was very hard. I don't talk about this a lot in general because I don't, but I feel called to talk about it now, right? So, one of my friends had given me the book The Secret, right? And I'm reading this book, and they're like, well, you can decide what you want, you can have whatever you want, right? And I was like, okay, we might as well try this out, And in that moment, I was like, I want to get married. I want to get married within the next year. And in my mind, I was like, what type of person do I want to be with? And I remember I'd go to sleep at night and I would almost like a checklist, but I was like, I want him to have this criteria and I want him to be this way and I want him to be that way. And that's not important to me and all this kind of stuff. And I want to say a few months later, I met my husband. At the point in time, I was dating a guy in London, who was a jerk and who did not want to be in a committed relationship. And I ended up going out with my husband because it was kind of like, well, see, I can go out with somebody else. Obviously, I broke up with that other gentleman in England and I started to date my husband. And I think we started off more kind of like friends because he didn't fit into the usual box of the guys I usually dated. I usually dated the entrepreneur, the guy in London was like a hedge fund manager, that kind of stuff. And my husband was like a scarf wearing, like, ripped jeans, artsy kind of type. And I was like, but the more I got to know him, the more I realized that he was just a really, really good man. That he was just a good, good man. And literally, I think it was like 8 months later, he asked me to marry him. Um,
Whoa.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, like 8 months later, which was kind of crazy. We had both come out of like longer relationships. So before the guy in London, I dated the Italian guy with the family and all that kind of stuff for maybe like 6 years. I don't remember how long right now. And my husband had been with his ex girlfriend for like 8 years. Um, and we met, and it was just kind of like he's just a really good guy. And my family loved him. My aunt was like, "Yeah, that's the one. That's the one." She was like, "Forget everybody else." And like 8 months later, something like that, I remember because my husband can't keep a secret. He gets all like excited, and so I always know when he's like planning something. So I basically knew he was going to ask me to marry him. But he was so nervous about it that he was at the table for dinner, and he had made a ring out of the white part of the bread, what the Italians call the monica, and that's what he ultimately proposed with. Like he made this ring out of the dough of the bread, and he was like,
Oh
"Thea,
my
will you marry
gosh,
me?"
that is so cute.
Yeah, it's totally sweet. And I said yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I mean, marriages, you have ups and you
Yeah.
have downs and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. But ultimately, my husband's a good man and he's an incredible father. He is such a doting father. It's kind of ridiculous. I call him the mom in the relationship.
That is so awesome because when you make a decision to be with someone and then, you know, take it a step further and say, I do, and then take it another step further and start a family,
Mm,
that is next level.
yeah.
But you are able to see in him, I would imagine, from what you shared, those qualities in him
Mm,
that just allowed your heart to say, this is the one.
mm,
And then to see that manifest in even how he is as a father, and even more that you're discovering and unfolding in this journey. So I am so delighted that your two stars like crossed and now like y'all gave birth to this like mini star that's like fabulous. And so
It's so funny. Now that you're telling me, I remember when I knew that he was the one because I suffered from really, really bad periods. So I would get like nauseous, and I was actually on my way back to the United States, and I basically passed out at the airport.
whoa.
And they like took me away in like a like a stroller, but not a stroller, whatever that thing is, and
Mm.
they hooked me up to an IV. Um, and I remember I called him, and I'm like, I have to go back to the States. I have to go to work. That very American mindset. And my husband's like, what are you doing? You're going to stay there. You're going to wait till you're better. And I remember me laying in the hospital of the airport and seeing him push the doors like open to the hospital and like running in, like, where is she?
Oh my gosh, that's like out of a
Yes.
movie.
And I was like, and there was so much concern and worry
Mm.
on his face. And I looked up at the clock and I was like, how did you get here this quickly? He had
Wow.
driven all the way up on the emergency lane
Oh
of
my
the
goodness.
highway to get to me. And that was the day that I knew I was going to marry him. Like, I was like,
Mm.
so he proposed later, but I was like, he's the one.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm not even there, but I could just imagine in my mind, like it bursting through the door. It's like, I need my woman. you know? It's oh my gosh. And that is such an incredible story and such an incredible memory.
Mm,
So I'm so delighted that you felt comfortable enough to share a bit about your love story with me. So for someone like myself, I'm a single
mhm,
woman. I talk about it in the intro, I think, to the podcast, or maybe it was a trailer. It's like I talk about being a happily untethered single lady. But
mhm,
in all truthfulness, it is possible that I will find love on this journey. So, for someone like me who is single and who's moving abroad or thinking about moving abroad, what would you say to them? Because you started off this conversation and you talked about mindset, and it sounds like there's something there. So if you could impart any wisdom or encouragement, I'd appreciate it.
And that's exactly what it is. I'm going to say it's mindset. It's loving yourself and knowing your self worth. And I think, I believe, and I've seen it in other people, that when you have that, other people see it and they appreciate you for what you are as well.
Mm.
I like to talk about, I have two friends, and and they're very opposite. One of them is, like a plumper, let's say maybe a size 18 woman, right? Beautiful, because she's beautiful, but not what society tells us is beautiful, right? And I have another girlfriend, and my husband would frequently say that she's like a 10. And I would be like, I can't disagree. Because she's like an Asian Barbie doll.
Yeah.
Like she's just like perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell you that my size 18 girlfriend would get more numbers, go on more dates, have more interactions when she was
Mhm.
single, because now she's married,
Wow, that's awesome.
because she had this energy. Like
Mm.
people were just drawn to her. We would go out and she'd get more numbers than I did. I'd be like, I'm cute too. Because she had this light.
Mm.
And I think when you have this light, this love for yourself, this pride, this knowing your worth, not everybody is going to be able to recognize it. Not everybody is going to be able to deal with it, but you will attract the people who can appreciate it, who can love on you, and who can be the partner that you're looking to have in your life. And the ones that don't want to be that way, you
Bye.
can say bye. Someone else will come around, right? And like I
That's
said, my
right.
girlfriend, that's exactly what happened to her. And she's happily married now. And I mean, I see it. The other thing that I feel is that I've lived in enough places and traveled enough that you come to realize that not everybody's looking for the same person. And
Mm.
that's what's beautiful about it, right?
Yes.
Like my husband always said he wanted to date a black woman, but his definition of black is like some crazy Italian way of saying it, right? And he likes women that looks like me. I'm not
Mm.
skinny. I'm not super thick. I'm this, right?
Mhm.
I have friends that love a curvy, voluptuous woman, and he just married a curvy, voluptuous woman like a month ago. And I'm like, of course, because that's what he loves and that's what he likes and that's what he appreciates.
Yeah.
And there's a man who likes the skinny, model-esque, long legs, and that's good for him. And I think when we realize that we don't all have to fit into one package, because the people on the other side are different and
Yeah.
everybody likes something different, and what works for you isn't what's going to work for me, and vice versa. And all that to say that as long as you realize that that's what it is, and that you don't have to buy into that crap of that there's no good men left or da 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 da, then you'll find somebody that can love and appreciate you for who you are, if you want to. If you want to be single, do that and enjoy it.
That's right. That's right. There's no shame. And
Right.
every pot has a lid. So I love
Exactly.
that. So Thea, thank you so much for being a guest on the Blaxit Global Finding Love Abroad. I am so delighted that we were able to expand on our conversation earlier into really being able to share more about your love story and your ability to impart wisdom to people like me who are getting ready to start this journey and had a little trepidation, still do, about about finding love abroad, but stories like yours make that less scary and more possible. So thank you so, so very much.
Thank you.